let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Heston, who writes, just finished the book Slugfest that you've recommended numerous times, and almost within the hour I hear news that the Russo brothers are making a documentary entitled Slugfest on Marvel and DC's competitive history. Does this have anything to do with the book? All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Heston. And yes, I think it was about a year ago, one of our viewers sent in a message saying, John, you might want to really check out this new book, Slugfest, the 50-year battle between Marvel and DC. I thought, that sounds fascinating. So I did. I took the advice. I went out and got it. Loved it. It is a fascinating book, guys. Go get it. If you don't like to read, get the Audible version. It is a fascinating story that I think will really give you a deeper appreciation for all this. Now, you're asking about whether or not this new Slugfest thing by the Russos has anything to do with it. Well, actually, it does. The series is inspired by Reed Tucker's book Slugfest, inside the epic 50-year battle between Marvel and DC. The competition between the publishers actually dates back to the FDR years and the publication of Action Comics #1, which introduced Superman and launched DC, and Marvel Comics #1, which introduced Namor the Submariner. But it was the revolutionary 1960s relaunch of Marvel by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko that gave the rivalry an urgency that transformed the marketplace. Rob, I can't remember, honestly, if you had a chance to check out Slugfest, but so you haven't.
I've never read the book. I own the book.
Oh, you do?
I have not read the book.
Crack into it, because this is real life Mad Men. I mean, seriously, the drama, and I'm not talking on the comic page, the interpersonal drama, the back channel dealing, the double crossing, and the corporate competitiveness, and it is, your eyes get glued to the page. Your eyes get absolutely glued to the page. This is a wonderful book. And I am not sponsored by Slugfest, but damn it, I should be, because I'm probably responsible for half of their book sales, because I've talked about this damn book so much. But it is so good. It's so good. For them to do a documentary on it, I think is fascinating. I think it's a really, really good idea. And the one question, and this seems petty, but the one question I have, though, is, are the Russo brothers the right guys to do it? And that is not a question of ability. It is a question of, the Russos are clearly Marvel men. They're Marvel men. And while Slugfest is a very fair and balanced book, my concern is that there will be, people who are entrenched in the Marvel versus DC fandom that will look at anything that looks remotely, even if it was a real life situation that even remotely made Marvel look more favorable than DC, people are going to point their fingers and scream bias. I don't know that they're the right guys to do it, simply not because of them, but because of how others unfairly may look at it. But still, the project on its own, I think, sounds fascinating. I'd love to see, this in documentary form. I'm really interested by this. Rob, you hear about this. Is this a good thing to take on, or do you think it's just a fool's errand? How do you feel about it?
No, I think it's really interesting. It's a story that people haven't really heard, especially people outside of the comic book realm. And I think that they can be objective about it. I think what's interesting is the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it exists now is not really a part. I mean, I'm sure they will take it up to where it is now, but you're talking about, like, they're talking about beginning in the World War II era, and bringing it up into the 60s. I mean, it was very apropos that you mentioned the Mad Men era, because that's what was going on. All these guys knew each other. It was all New York based. I mean, they walked past each other on the streets every day, commuting to work. I mean, it's an interesting milieu. I think they're going to concentrate on the past, and I think it's going to be great. I can't wait to see something like this dramatized. Although, I know I haven't read the book, but it's ultimately guys sitting in bullpens drawing pictures and writing and figuring out.
But it's crazy how much the business gets, like, for instance, like there are entire chapters that care about the real battle that went on. Because remember, guys, there weren't comic book stores.
Right.
It was the local drugstore and convenience store that had the spinning racks with comics, and the political battles about who gets their comics in the higher profile racks. Which company first started using the higher quality paper? How did they get the supply chain to work? I mean, it's all this minutia, this logistical minutia that becomes incredibly dramatic as you're reading this, and the back channel dealings, and it's unbelievable. And then if you think you know Stan Lee, but man, Stan Lee was a man of, like, many of us will remember Stan as this jovial, the senior representative, the guy we all owe it all to. Stan Lee was a man of insane hubris. Like insane hubris back in the day, which won him a lot of friends and made him a lot of enemies. But it's crazy the way it plays out. And it makes me want to go back and read the book again.
Yeah, well, now I'll have to pick that up. I'm reading Paul Hirsch's book on editing now because he was one of the editors on Star Wars. His new book just came out. But I can only imagine, we're going to raise the price from 10 cents to 12 cents. No, we can't do that.
Outcry. I mean, it's crazy. That goes in the price, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, guys, have you had a chance to read Slugfest? Even if you have or haven't, how do you feel about this potential documentary coming out? Jump down to the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right.